The studio was colder than expected. Jasmine Crockett sat quietly in the dressing room, her fingers wrapped around a mug of lukewarm green tea. Her makeup artist gave her final touches, but Jasmine wasn't thinking about her face. Her mind was locked on what might happen the moment the cameras turned on. Nation Pulse wasn't just any political talk show. It had millions of live viewers and even more who would dissect the clips later on social media. Tonight's debate wasn't just about policy, it was a battlefield. Her opponent, J.D. Vance, a man known as much for his sharp words as his sharp rise in American politics. Outside the green room, producers moved fast, headsets buzzing, last-minute papers flying from hand to hand. Jasmine's chief aide, Rena, returned from a short meeting with the stage manager. Her face said something was off. "They changed the lineup," Rena whispered, placing a folded note in Jasmine's hand. Topics on race, surveillance policy, and something they're calling personal accountability. Jasmine unfolded the note and read quickly. Her jaw tightened. "That wasn't part of the agreement. We pushed back. They said it was a directive from higher up." Jasmine stared straight ahead into the mirror. She'd faced tougher moments. Congressional hearings, media hit pieces, even death threats. But this felt different, a little more staged, a little more dangerous. Meanwhile, on the other side of the set, J.D. Vance smiled as a producer adjusted his lapel mic. He was relaxed, charming as always, sipping water and cracking jokes with the sound guy. But underneath that smooth surface, his eyes were focused, calculating. He wasn't just here to debate, he was here to win. And not just the argument, the narrative. In his private dressing room earlier, J.D. had received a sealed envelope. No return name, no markings. Inside were screenshots, snippets of Jasmine's past that had never gone public. Personal things. Financial records from years ago. Internal memos from activist groups she'd once worked with, even grainy photos from a protest she'd never spoken about on record. He didn't know who sent them, but he intended to use them. Backstage, hidden. Security cameras captured a strange interaction. A production assistant had briefly spoken with JD's aide and handed off a USB drive. It looked harmless, ordinary, but nothing in politics was ever harmless. The countdown began. 3 minutes to live. In the control room, the director gave orders, cueing graphics, checking audio levels. He muttered under his breath, "Let's make this explosive." Jasmine walked toward the stage, heels clicking softly against the polished floor. As she reached the edge of the lights, she paused, breathing in through her nose, then out. Her mind flashed back to moments of struggle, her first day in Congress. Being interrupted in committee, being dismissed on live TV. She remembered what she'd told herself that day. Use your voice. No one else owns it. J.D. was all ready, in his seat, offering a handshake as she approached. She took it briefly firm, no smile. The host of Nation Pulse welcomed the audience with his usual practiced flair. Tonight, we bring you two of the most watched voices in American politics, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Senator J.D. Vance. On the table tonight, race, economics, American identity, and the future of democracy. The cameras rolled. The lights burned hot. First questions came easy. Climate policy, inflation. Both answered calmly, trading numbers and slogans like chess pieces. But everyone, viewers, staff, even the live audience, could feel the undercurrent. This wasn't going to stay polite for long. 10 minutes in, the moderator shifted gears. "Let's talk about public trust," he said. "Congresswoman Crockett, you've been vocal about systemic injustice, but some critics say your message creates more division than unity. Do you accept that?" Jasmine leaned slightly forward, her voice even. "What I speak are facts. If facts are uncomfortable, that says more about the system than the messenger." JD smiled, taking his turn. "I grew up in a community no one paid attention to until it was politically useful. Appalachia? Isn't a trending hashtag disreal suffering? I didn't blame the system. I changed my life." Jasmine looked at him, calm but sharp. And then you blamed everyone else on your way up. The crowd murmured. JD's eyes narrowed. I think it's fair to ask how much of your narrative is truth and how much is performance. There it was. It's the first strike. Jasmine didn't flinch. Is that what this is? You fishing for something to discredit me? He leaned back. I'm just saying, transparency matters. A red light blinked in the studio, a signal from the control room. The producers were thrilled. The energy was rising. Suddenly, JD pulled out a paper. Since we're talking about transparency, perhaps we can ask the Congresswoman about this 2015 financial form she never disclosed. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. Her heart skipped once. She knew exactly what he held in, that it had been sealed legally years ago. This isn't a courtroom, she said evenly. And that document was resolved before I ever ran for office. JD pressed, but the public has a right to know. If you demand accountability, you should live by it. Rena, backstage, was already on the phone with legal. How the hell did he get that file? Inside the studio, the tension cracked. Like glass. The audience was silent. The moderator hesitated, unsure whether to move on or lean in. Jasmine picked up her water glass, took a slow sip, then looked directly at JD. You want to play that game? Fine. But I hope you're ready for what's next. The air shifted. The live chat online exploded with comments. Every major news outlet was already clipping the moment. But what no one knew not yet was that Jasmine's team had just received an encrypted file of their own. And inside that file was something about JD Vance no one had seen before. Not even him. The moment the cameras cut to commercial, the studio snapped into motion. Technicians rushed forward to adjust lights. Assistants whispered updates into earpieces. The moderator leaned forward to wipe sweat from his brow. But at the center of the storm, Jasmine sat still, her fingers lightly tapping against the desk. She wasn't rattled. She was calculating. Rena was already by her side the second she stepped off set. We just confirmed where that document came from, she whispered urgently. It wasn't public. Someone from within Treasury leaked it. On purpose. Jasmine kept walking, her eyes scanning the hallway like a soldier in foreign terrain. And Vance knew. That wasn't a debate point. That was an ambush. Rena nodded. We also got something else encrypted. It's dropped into our secure inbox. Just minutes ago, it's labeled Vance Protocols. Run it. Quietly, Jasmine said, and tell Malik to trace the metadata. I want to know who's playing chess with us. Back inside the studio, JD Vance stood before the mirror. In his dressing room. A producer congratulated him. That hit landed hard. Trending already, JD forced a smile but said nothing. Something was bothering him. He glanced at his phone, again 2 missed calls from an unlisted number. He ignored them. His aide, Cal, leaned in. She's going to retaliate. JD nodded. Let her try. We've got the upper ground now. But neither of them knew what Jasmine's team had just discovered. Backstage, Rena huddled with Jasmine and a young cybersecurity consultant named Malik. He had already cracked open the encrypted file. This is big, Malik whispered, eyes locked on the screen. Internal memos. Communications between JD's campaign and a lobbying firm connected to foreign energy interests. Russian-linked intermediaries. Large donations that were never reported. Jasmine exhaled slowly. We can't just drop this on air. Rena raised an eyebrow. Why not? 'Cause this isn't just about him. This could be bigger. A network. Malik nodded. Some of these IP addresses trace back to overseas intelligence servers. There's digital fingerprinting consistent with state-backed manipulation. This could be the tip of an influence operation. Jasmine's jaw tightened. And someone wanted us to have it. The real question is why. The second half of the debate was about to begin. Producers called them back. As Jasmine walked toward the stage again, she passed JD. Their eyes locked briefly, coldly. The crowd had grown louder. Social media was now boiling with speculation. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag Vance vs. Crockett was the #1 tag on every major platform. Clips from the first half had already racked up millions of views. The moderator cleared his throat. We now move into our second segment, national security and foreign influence. JD stiffened. He hadn't seen this in the pre-show lineup. Jasmine's voice was calm. Senator Vance, you've spoken often about the dangers of foreign influence in American politics. Do you believe our current system has safeguards strong enough to prevent hidden alliances? JD smiled thinly. I think we need stronger enforcement. Yes, foreign lobbying must be transparent. Jasmine didn't blink. Even when that lobbying flows into your own campaign? JD frowned. Excuse me? She turned to the moderator. With your permission, I'd like to submit a document to the record. She held up a printed copy of the first few leaked emails. Verified communications between the Vance campaign and a shell entity traced to a Russian-backed energy firm. Jade's face lost its color. That's a lie. Malik was backstage feeding real-time confirmation to Rena. The servers. Check out, digital fingerprints are clean. No forgeries. The moderator was speechless. Senator Vance, would you like to respond? JD's eyes darted between Jasmine and the audience. This is a political hit job I've never accepted. Foreign funds. The car ride from the studio was silent at first. Jasmine sat in the back seat, her face lit only by the glow of her phone screen. Rena sat beside her, scrolling through trending posts and tracking media reactions. The video clip of her calling out JD Vance on Foreign Ties had already passed 40 million views. But Jasmine wasn't celebrating. Her eyes were fixed on a different message, the anonymous text. You've opened the first door. Now be ready for the others. I need to trace this, she muttered. I'm on it, Malik's voice crackled over speakerphone. But whoever sent it masked their signal using onion layers. It bounced through 4 countries before reaching you. Whoever this is, they're good. Rena glanced over. You think it's a whistleblower? Jasmine shook her head. No, whistleblowers don't play with riddles. This feels like a setup or a warning. The car stopped at a secure office in D.C., a rented space, firewalled from government networks. Jasmine had used it before when she didn't trust phones, emails, or even allies. Inside, Malik already had a projection up. Maps, server paths, timestamps, and a new message that had just arrived. Same unknown number. The energy deal is only the surface. Look in Ohio. Look at V7. Jasmine narrowed her eyes. V7. Is that a code? Malik typed furiously. There was a defunct PAC from Vance's early campaign days. It dissolved within months, but took in over $4 million from consulting firms. One was flagged years ago for laundering money for Eastern European contracts. Rena leaned forward. That's our next thread. But Jasmine held up her hand. Wait, we're missing something. Why now? Why leak this during a debate? Why hand it to me, of all people? The room went quiet. Rena finally spoke. Because you'd use it. You wouldn't sit on it. They wanted it detonated publicly. Jasmine looked at the timeline again, leaks documents, the debate, the live meltdown. This isn't about exposing Vance, she said slowly. It's about destabilizing him. Maybe even removing him. Malik nodded. And if someone wants him gone that badly, we need to know who benefits. An hour later, Jasmine sat alone, staring at a whiteboard covered in red marker notes. Every arrow led to a bigger question. Back in Ohio, JD Vance was not sitting quietly. His private team had assembled at a closed-door retreat. Phones were collected at the entrance. Security. Guards watched every exit. JD stood before a large monitor, arms crossed as a digital forensics analyst presented a terrifying report. "The leak came from inside," she said. "Someone accessed campaign archives that were supposed to be offline. It wasn't Crockett's. Team, it was planted in their inbox through a secure drop link. They're being manipulated." JD's voice was cold. "Who, we think? A ghost group. Old intelligence circles. People burned after Ukraine policy was shifted. Some of them have motives." JD sat down. "This isn't just political now. It's a takedown OP." His advisor, Cal, nodded. "And it's working." JD rubbed his temples. "Find out who they're hitting next. This is just beginning. Crockett won't be the only pawn." The next morning, Nation Pulse ran a breaking headline: "Foreign Influence Scandal. Expands Senate Demands Probe into J.D. Vance Campaign." The footage from the debate had triggered congressional calls for investigation. News outlets were spinning stories every hour. Some painted Jasmine as a whistleblower hero. Others accused her of being used. Jasmine scrolled through headlines, her jaw tight. Rena entered with a printed file. "It's getting worse." "A what?" "Now," Jasmine asked. Rena handed her the document. "Someone sent this anonymously to 3 reporters. It's a sealed juvenile court file. Yours, Jasmine, went still. It's about your brother, the drug charges, the sealed plea deal." For a moment, she said nothing. Then, "They're not just fighting back. They're trying to destroy me personally." Malik called again. We found another trace. That V7 account, it links to a private shell company in Cyprus. And guess who the board includes? A former Department of Energy official. A guy recently sanctioned for election interference. Jasmine stood. "Okay, no more reaction. We go on offense now." Rena frowned. "You're thinking of going public again?" "Not yet. We leak pieces, controlled drops. Make them guess what we know and how much we'll reveal. But if they've got your sealed files, I'll let them. I've told the truth my whole life. Let them try." Just then, Jasmine's phone buzzed again. Another message from the same hidden number. "There is one name missing. The one that funds both sides. Ask your moderator." She froze. The moderator from the debate. Rena leaned in. "You don't think I don't think anything?" Jasmine interrupted. "But we need to. Get his financial records now." Malik's voice trembled on speaker. "I think we're inside something way bigger than we thought. This isn't about Vance or you anymore. This is structural. It's about control." Shh. Jasmine stared at the last message again. Someone was using her. Shh. Someone was controlling what she saw. Shh. And she was now caught in the middle of a storm designed to break political systems from within. But they had chosen the wrong woman to trap. This was just getting started. The next morning brought chaos. Jasmine woke to find her name on every screen. News anchors repeated the same phrases like a warning bell: sealed juvenile record, conflict of interest, ethics violation. She sat at the edge of the bed, still in her clothes from last night, phone in one hand, coffee untouched. Her team was already scrambling. "They're trying to bury you in noise," Rena said over video call. They dropped 5 different leaks in 1 hour, most of it distorted. One story says you helped your brother escape charges. Another says you took foreign campaign donations. All false, Jasmine said. That doesn't matter. In this game, first impressions win. They're flooding the field before we can speak. Malik broke in from another screen. We traced one of the leaks to a DC-based PR firm called Grantham Strategies. On paper, they're clean. But they've taken dark contracts before. Saudi lobbying, crypto influencers, even voter suppression efforts. And who pays them? Jasmine asked. We're digging. But guess what? They just got a 7-figure deposit last week from a holding company called Parallax Systems, based in the Caymans. Parallax. Jasmine stood slowly. Realization dawning. That name came up in a Ukraine hearing 2 years ago. Behind closed doors, Rena flipped through an old encrypted database. Wait. Yes. It was flagged for funneling money to energy development contracts. Both Republican and Democrat officials were listed as recipients, Jasmine whispered, and our debate moderator. Rena nodded. Used to sit on the advisory board of a consultancy funded by Parallax. The moderator is compromised. Jasmine felt the full weight now. They used the debate as a trigger. To set all this in motion, Vance was just the match. I'm the real target? She walked to the window, stared at the Capitol dome in the distance. If we stay reactive, we lose. We need to go on the offensive. But we need something bigger than just leaks. Malik said, "You want a public hearing?" "No, I want a controlled leak, one that burns through the noise, something too explosive to bury." She turned back to the team. "We find out what?" Parallax Systems really funds, who they control, and who they've silenced. At the same time, in Ohio, J.D. Vance stared at his phone in disbelief. His private text logs had been leaked, some real, some forged, showing conversations with foreign business partners. In one of them, he appeared to discuss policy suggestions in exchange for future security. The damage was nuclear. His Senate allies were backing away. Anonymous sources inside his own staff had begun to speak to reporters, but J.D. wasn't finished. He stormed into his private office and slammed the door. His lead advisor, Cal, followed. "They're dismantling me piece by piece," J.D. growled. "They're dismantling the structure," Cal said. "You're just one beam." "What do you mean? Whoever's doing this isn't a journalist. This is strategic. It's intelligence-level precision. They're removing anyone who doesn't align with a bigger agenda." J.D. sat down. "Then tell me, who do they want in power?" Cal hesitated, then answered carefully. "Someone they can build around. Someone with public credibility, minority status, a clean record, and media dominance." J.D.'s eyes narrowed. "Crockett. They're elevating her while destroying you, whether she knows it or not. She's part of it." J.D. looked out the window. "So I either disappear or I blow this up before they finish." Back in D.C., Jasmine stepped into a dimly lit meeting room 3 blocks from Capitol Hill. Inside sat a former NSA analyst, now a quiet whistleblower, codename Vega. "I don't usually come in person," Vega said without shaking hands, "but you're the only one asking the right questions." "Parallax Systems," Jasmine said. "Tell me what it really is." Vega opened a tablet and slid it across the table. A web of red and blue nodes lit up. Politicians, energy companies, shell firms, even news networks. "They're not just a fund," Vega whispered. "They're an architecture. A private influence operation built to manipulate domestic policy through pressure points, campaign finance, media narratives, and internal sabotage." Jasmine studied the screen. Her own face appeared next to a list of keywords: disruptive, credible, uncontrollable. "You were flagged to years ago," Vega said. "After your first..." Jasmine stared at the monitor as the files kept opening, one after another. Emails between lobbyists and senators. Text messages arranging offshore payments. Private memos from PR firms detailing smear campaigns, including the one targeting her. Everything was there. Her name appeared on a chart labeled Tier 1 Threats to Narrative Control. Alongside it, 3 others. A whistleblower judge in Michigan, climate activist from Nairobi, a European journalist who'd gone missing 6 months ago. Her breath caught. She closed the laptop and looked around her office. The silence suddenly felt heavy, like something watching. Every object, her phone, her desk light, even the vent above now felt suspect. Malik called. "We have a bigger problem," he said before she could speak. J.D. Vance just went live. "What?" He hijacked a radio interview in Ohio, said he's stepping away from the Senate indefinitely to protect his family. But that's not all. Jasmine turned on the TV. J.D.'s voice echoed from the screen. "There are forces in Washington unseen, Journalists unelected using corporate money and media puppets to destroy any voice they can't control. I was one of them. So is Jasmine Crockett. She's next. Feed cut to static. Jasmine froze. He just dragged me into his collapse. No, Malik said. He passed you the torch, whether he meant to or not. She knew what that meant. Every journalist would now chase this same question. What was J.D. Vance trying to say? And what does Jasmine Crockett know? She had two choices: stay silent, let the story spiral on its own, or step in and own it before the system wrote her out. She chose the second. By evening, Jasmine was walking into a quiet room at a downtown media bureau. It was bare. One table, two chairs, a single overhead camera. Across from her sat Nia Lin, a former Pulitzer-winning war correspondent turned independent journalist, unfiltered, dangerous, trusted by no one in power. I heard you have a story, Nia said. Without smiling, I have a file, Jasmine replied. And a clock that's ticking. She handed over a printed copy of one of the most damning documents, a memo between 9 PI systems and a U.S. senator authorizing targeted media manipulation using private intelligence firms. Nia's eyes widened. She didn't speak for 10 seconds. This is real. Every word. And you're giving it to me? I'm giving it to the public, Jasmine said. You're just the only one who won't water it down. Nia looked at her with something between caution and respect. You understand this puts a target on your back? I had won the moment I stepped on that debate stage. They started rolling. That night, the video went live. Jasmine, unscripted. Unprotected, exposing names, networks, and numbers. She didn't present herself as a hero, just as a woman tired of fighting with one hand tied behind her back. We live in a system that rewards silence, she said into the camera. But I didn't come to Washington to survive. I came to pull back the curtain. And tonight, I'm telling you, the show is over. The interview hit 10 million views in 5 hours. The reaction was immediate. Some networks ignored it. Others tried to discredit it. But most couldn't look away. Hashtag Crockett Files began trending worldwide. A leaked screenshot from Parallax's internal system showed Jasmine's risk rating marked as critical escalate discreditation. She laughed when Malik showed her. They're scared, he said. They should be. Meanwhile, deep in a secure location outside the Beltway, J.D. Vance met a man in a black sedan, no names. Exchanged. You said you had something else, the man asked. J.D. handed him a sealed envelope. She has the first layer, J.D. said. But this is the core. Inside was a flash drive one J.D. had stolen months ago during a closed-door energy committee hearing. It didn't just show corruption. It proved coordination. How certain lawmakers fed bills to energy companies in exchange for global end seeds, with global stock manipulation strategies, raising fuel prices and working fuel prices, and funneling profits into election war chests. She'll need this, J.D. said. But if they know she has it before she's ready, she won't last 48 hours. J.D. nodded. Then get it to her, quietly. At 2:14 a.m., a silent courier dropped a flat envelope outside Jasmine's apartment building. No return. Address, no markings. Inside, a small drive and a note that read, "If part 1 shook them, this will bury them." She loaded the contents on a secure device. Her hands trembled as she watched the truth unfold. She hadn't just walked into a debate. She had walked into a war. And now, she wasn't the only one bleeding. They had taken shots at her reputation, her past, her family. But they made one fatal mistake. They left her standing, and now she held the match. Tomorrow, she would strike it. The morning after the file arrived, Jasmine didn't sleep. She sat in her apartment, staring at the encrypted contents over and over. Documents, names, voice, memos. A recording that chilled her to the bone, A strategy call between 3 U.S. senators and energy executives, discussing how to engineer rolling fuel shortages before midterm elections. We create controlled chaos, one voice said. Then we pitched the cure. It was worse than corruption, was systemic sabotage. She looked out the window as DC buzzed beneath her. The people walking below had no idea about the market, manipulation, about the offer cord deals, about how their suffering was being calculated like numbers on a board. Her phone rang. 15 minutes, Malik said. They're setting up at Union Hall. All independent media. No suits, just truth. I'll be there, she replied. She dressed without thinking, dark blazer, flats, no makeup, not a politician today, a witness, a fighter, maybe a target. As she stepped outside, a black SUV parked across the street pulled out without turning on its headlights. She noticed, inside Union Hall, the atmosphere was electric. Small auditorium. Had been stripped down, no logos, no flashing lights, just folding chairs, rigged cameras, and journalists with battered notebooks. Nia Lynn stood in the corner, speaking to a producer. When she saw Jasmine, she gave a nod. Respectful, serious, no more games. The plan was simple. Jasmine would take the podium, read a prepared statement, then play the recording. Once you do this, Malik warned quietly, you won't just be up against politicians. You'll be challenging the entire economic structure. Jasmine took a breath. Good. The cameras went live at 9:02 a.m. Thank you for being here, she began, voice steady. I'm not here as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I'm here as a citizen, a daughter, someone who has seen too much and stayed quiet too long. She laid out the basics, the connections between parallax systems, compromised officials, and media narratives. She described how the public had been misled, again and again. Then she held up the drive. This, she said, is what they didn't. Want you to hear? She pressed play. The voice came through, low but clear. We let the prices rise. Voters panic. We announce relief. Stocks jump. Our people win again. Gasps in the room. Jasmine let it run for 2 full minutes before stopping it. Is this treason? She asked aloud. Maybe, is it capitalism? Definitely. Is it right? Not even close. The feed went viral instantly. Clips flooded social media. Analysts scrambled. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Crockett drop. Hashtag fuel for votes. Hashtag system exposed. But Jasmine knew the pushback would come fast and hard. By noon, the attacks began. Cable news anchors called it an out-of-context leak. Senators denied everything. Anonymous sources accused Jasmine of foreign collusion. By 3 p.m., Parallax Systems filed an emergency injunction to prevent further publication of the audio. By 5 p.m., 2 federal agents showed up outside Union Hall asking for voluntary cooperation. Malik stepped in. She's not going anywhere. Inside the hall, Jasmine sat alone at a side table, scanning messages. One stood out. A blocked number. The message read, "You've got one more card to play. Don't waste it. Look at the photo." An image downloaded J.D. Vance, standing beside a map. Behind him, a whiteboard, marked with 3 letters. EOR. She froze. Enhanced. Oil recovery. The secret third phase of the plan. She remembered seeing a reference to it in the documents, but it had been redacted. Now J.D. was pointing straight at it. Was it a warning or a clue? She dialed Malik. I need a ride, she said. Now where? To J.D. R. You insane? Probably. But if there's one last thread left, I'm not letting someone else pull it. J.D. Vance was staying in a private house just outside Cincinnati, under guard but not hiding. His wife answered the door, eyes wary but calm. He's expecting you. Inside, J.D. looked thinner, eyes darker. It's like a man who'd seen something he couldn't unsee. I figured you'd come, he said. You left the map on purpose, she replied. He nodded. I tried to fight it from the inside. But the deeper I went, the harder it became to breathe. What's EOR? JD. Look down, then up. Phase 3, they plan to use artificial scarcity, shut down oil fields while faking environmental compliance. Okay? Then reopen them for private international bidders. Foreign hands. Controlled pipelines. It's global leverage, Jasmine. Blackmail built on fuel. Her skin chilled. And Congress is in on it. Not all, JD said, but enough. He walked to a cabinet, pulled out a folder. This is the final layer. Give this to Naya. It has code names, internal ciphers. The shadow board. Jasmine took it without hesitation. Why help me? JD's eyes softened. Because you didn't blink. Not when they came for you. Rain hit the windshield as Jasmine's car sped through the Capitol. In the back seat, she clutched the final folder JD had given her. Inside, names, numbers, private code names. The shadow board was real. Unelected men and women embedded across. Multiple sectors: oil, tech, intelligence, finance. Their signatures appeared beside classified appropriations. Black budgets. Off-planet accounts. Hidden government inside the system. She looked out the window at Washington, D.C., its marble buildings glowing under lightning. She knew now this wasn't about fuel or one debate. This was about control, reality, power. Where to? Malik asked, knuckles tight on the wheel. Naya Lynn, Jasmine said. She's going live in 1 hour. Inside the studio, Nia's crew was quiet. No laughter. No background chatter. The tension felt surgical, like a newsroom before war coverage. Jasmine walked in, soaked folder in hand. I hope you're ready, she said. Naya took one look at the documents and nodded. We'll run it uncensored. Full segment. But, Jasmine. What? They'll come for you after this. This isn't a debate anymore. This is exposure. Jasmine smiled faintly. Then let them come. I'm done asking for permission. The cameras rolled at 7 p.m. sharp. Naya faced the lens. Her voice clear but shaken. Tonight, what you're about to see is not a conspiracy theory. It is not speculation. It is documentation, signed, sourced, and independently verified by 3 forensic teams. She turned to Jasmine. You have the floor. Jasmine stepped forward and placed the folder on the desk. For months, certain lawmakers and multinational energy partners have been preparing a third phase in a strategy they call enhanced oil recovery, not just as a technology, but as a weapon. They plan to create artificial energy crises to manipulate elections, financial markets, and foreign alliances. We have proof, we have names, and we're done pretending. She slid a page across the table. On screen, it zoomed in. Senators, CEOs, a national security advisor, a major news anchor. This is not about left versus right. It's about truth versus machinery. Then she played the final recording, a private call. We control energy, we control narrative, said Anne. Unrecognizable voice. America's memory is short. Panic is longer. Give them both, and they'll never question who's holding the lighter. Silence filled the studio. Then chaos. Within an hour, the story cracked the front page of every global outlet. Hashtag fuel leverage trended on 6 continents. Protesters gathered outside Capitol Hill and oil refineries in Texas and Louisiana. Emergency meetings were called in Brussels and Ottawa. But with the noise came the hammer. That night, Jasmine's office was raided. Malik was detained at Dulles Airport. 3 anonymous accounts posted leaked photos painting Jasmine as a foreign asset. All fake, all coordinated. The goal was clear, discredit, isolate, destroy. But the public didn't fall for it this time. People had heard the truth. And something had changed. At 3:30 a.m., Jasmine received a message from an unmarked number. Phase 3 suspended. Investigation opened. Be ready. She showed it to Naya. They blinked. Naya said, stunned. Jasmine shook her head. No, they're just regrouping. But this is a win. No, she said quietly. It's the opening. It's 1 week. Later, a Senate hearing was called. Not everyone showed up. Some fled the country. One major oil executive was found dead in a hotel room in Dubai. The official story said heart attack. Nia Special was re-aired 5 nights in a row. A growing bloc in Congress called for the creation of an independent energy ethics tribunal. Whispers of a truth coalition, a cross-party alliance, began to stir. Jasmine stood at the center of it all. Not by choice, by survival. One evening, she visited J.D. Vance again. He was staying in a safe house now, guarded, forgotten by both parties. "I hear they stripped you of committee seats," she said. He smiled bitterly. "First thing they did. Second was freezing my PAC donors." "You knew that'd happen." "Yeah, I just didn't think it would feel this quiet." Jasmine sat beside him. "You gave up a seat at the table." He looked at her. "You lit the whole table on fire." They shared a laugh. Small one. The kind you only share when you've both seen the edge. Months passed. Laws were proposed. Hearings dragged on. Some indicted. Most protected. But something subtle had changed. People asked harder questions. Networks no longer cut to commercial when energy policy was mentioned. And Jasmine, she kept going. She spoke at high schools, at gas stations, at labor halls. One line echoed wherever she went. "We aren't here to dismantle America. We're here to remember what it was supposed to be." One night, after a town hall, Jasmine stood outside under a wide Texas sky. She checked her phone. A message blinked. "Next debate, Geneva. Energy Charter. Global Eyes. You're requested." She stared at it. Same battle. Bigger board. She turned the screen off, pocketed the phone, and looked up. The stars were quiet tonight. But she knew the world was watching.